The reading is from Exodus 17, verses 1 through 7. You'll find it on page 49 in your pew Bibles in the Old Testament. From the wilderness of Sin, the whole congregation of the Israelites journeyed by stages, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do for this people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock of Horeb. Strike the rock and water will come out of it so that the people may drink." Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel. He called the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled and tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Friends, will you pray with me? And as you feel so familiar and comfortable, I invite you to join in the second time through. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O God. Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O God. Amen. I'm going to bring this just a little bit since we don't have anyone on that side of the sanctuary today. Just move that over there. So at this time of year, in the part of the world where Moses was in this story, the temperature, average temperature, is somewhere in the 80s, 90s, low hundreds. Now we can imagine perhaps that it might have been slightly cooler a few thousand years ago, climate change, but it was not lovely and temperate, shall we say. The Israelite people are traveling with Moses, and they are journeying through the desert in these temperatures. They are carrying everything they own with them, probably also carrying small children who cannot walk that far or that long. They are also herding along their livestock with them. And they are thirsty. Now, probably few, if any of us, have ever been thirsty like that. Thirsty like walking miles through the desert, thirsty. But I could imagine that some of us maybe have experienced a spiritual or metaphorical thirst. This time in Exodus, this time of the Israelites traveling through the wilderness, is a time of deprivation, of challenge. It is a time where they are often chided for their complaining, although, in my opinion, they had reason to complain. But we have also experienced times of challenge, of wilderness, times where we are thirsty for justice, thirsty for peace, times where we just feel frustrated, where we ask the question there in verse 7, is the Lord amongst us or not? We question God's presence and agency in the world when the world seems to be falling apart, when injustice seems to be flowing much more than justice. Is the Lord amongst us or not? I think this is particularly true at this time in history for the LGBTQIA community. Never a community that has, been a community that has seen lots of freedom and welcome. I think they very much compare to the Israelites in this story. The Israelites have been, for a long time, under slavery, under Pharaoh. They have been away from their homeland. They have been worked and persecuted. They have just had a hard time. And finally, they have been liberated. Moses has come along, a famous "let my people go," here they go, and now here they are in the wilderness saying, okay, did you get us out of here just so that we could die of thirst? This week, on June 26th, marks the 10th anniversary of federal marriage equality. And so it seems very much to me, I can imagine, not just imagine, I understand the sense of, we came all this way. Finally, there was some equality. Finally. And now you want to take it all away from us again. Is the Lord amongst us or not? So Moses, after sort of throwing up complaints about the Israelites' complaints, what am I supposed to do with these people? He says to God. God says, come over here. Take your staff that you used at the Nile and strike this rock, and there will flow the water. Now, this is often portrayed as a miracle, that God somehow just miraculously brought forth water from a rock, but actually, water in that area does flow through the rocks. So God was just showing Moses what was already there. See, the wilderness was not actually barren and without resources. They just weren't looking in the right places. They weren't seeing the life that was right there among them. I wonder if we look around in our world today, in our wilderness, where we might see life flowing. Where we might see, as one writer calls it, queer joy in particular. I wonder as well if we might be a source of that life for that community. Lots of the LGBTQI community would not look at a church and expect it to be a place of sustenance and life. And why would they? Historically, we have not been a place, not we as this particular community, but we as the Big C Church, been a place of welcome and inclusion, and that continues to this day. Substack, I'm not sure why, decided that somewhere in the algorithm showed me a post yesterday about the demonic practices that we are now just becoming normal, and I decided to read it because I thought, why is Substack showing me? Maybe this isn't what I think it is. Oh no, it was. It was what I think it was. Someone who, bemoaning what has become normal in our society and how even churches are standing up and accepting these practices. And I thought, and this is why I need to continue doing what I do. Because the people out there are thirsty. They are thirsty for justice, and they are thirsty for community, and they are thirsty for spirituality and connection to a God that they wonder if has forgotten them. We can be a source of life for that community. It means going out into the community to see what people are thirsty for, to see what their needs are. I mean, they were clearly saying, "We are thirsty, give us water to drink." Very clearly naming their need. But they're not going to the rock and looking. Moses had to show them. We have to show them. Of course, they can only see that if they come in. So we have to go out, show them that we are a source of life and sustenance. And I hope you all feel like this place in the midst of the wilderness and trial and challenging times is a source of life, sustenance. God never promised that the journey would be easy without challenges. However, the promise was always that God would be present. You know, it struck me when I was first reading this passage for this time. God very specifically said where this rock was going to be. Come to the rock of Horeb. And I thought, well, that's very specific. Like, why is that? I'm trying to remember, why is that so important? That rock, that spot, was the place where Moses first encountered God in the burning bush. In this journey, they have returned to this spot where Moses was taught the presence and power of God. First in fire, now in water. A reminder of God's steadfast presence. Yes, Moses, I sent you there, and I'm bringing you all back. To answer that question, is the Lord among us or not? The answer is a resounding yes.